Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and we're getting a little pre-production this evening as I'll be taking a look at the 3D printed prototypes of Ursenal and Mantax, the kickstarting debut pieces in the BMOG, Biomechanical Ordinance Gestalts toyline. These buildable robot animals can bust down into small stacks of weaponry and use nothing but 5mm pegs and ports to do so. Right up front, let's get real and transparent. These are 3D prints. The BMOG toyline is going to be made from plastic injected into steel molds. What we're looking at today are functional concept pieces. What you'll be able to get a hold of will look much more slick with crisper detail and a smoother finish. Those superior plastic versions don't actually exist yet. That's why BMOG is running a Kickstarter campaign. For more info on that, hit up their page and watch the helpful video. With that preamble about their crowdsourced gamble fully rambled, let's see how these guys work. The smaller of the two figures is Mantax, of the evil peroids. This tiny mecha manta has a lot of personality between his googly optics and shock suspension tail. His underside reveals some friggin' cool turbine detailing, which will only look better once he goes into proper plastic injection molding. Representing a smaller BMOG price point, Mantax breaks down into two pieces. Most of his body can be wielded as a double-sided axe, while his head is meant to be a double-barreled pistol. The fit of these 3D printed prototype pieces is quite good, giving me a lot of confidence about how well they'll work once rendered in plastic. Also, I really dig the specific indentation for reattaching Mantax's head to his body. It gives his standalone mode some much-needed aesthetic smoothness that makes it less apparent that he's actually made of two parts. The main event piece is Ursenal, the bionic bear of the heroic augmenttoids. He's the opening example of the standard BMOG figure size, feeling a whole lot like a slightly beefed-up Action Master partner. Ursenal's bear mode has a strong stance, and looks pretty solid from the front. A rear or top-down view belies the nature of the figure a little too much, feeling like some sort of top-mounted plate piece would have finished things off very nicely. As it is, there's a bit of gappiness. Nonetheless, the overall look of the bear mode is supported by copious surface detail and a cool head sculpt whose open mouth doubles as a 5mm compatible peg hole. There is some serious retro charm to Ursenal, bolstered greatly by the style of the surface sculpting. He's also got 3 useful points of swivel articulation. Either of his rear legs can move, and twiddling Ursenal's central core allows for his head to kinda look up or down. When it's time to help out a 5mm compatible comrade, Ursenal shreds down into a delightful pile of weaponry. Of obvious note are the twin machine guns and twin double missile launchers. These all look great as firearms, and using Ursenal's front legs as ammo magazines is very clever, though I imagine an inopportune reload could make for a sad robot bear. Ursenal's central core disassembles into 4 single and smaller accessories. His head is a grabber claw thing, which never really stops looking like his head. It is a defensible aesthetic that's happened in toylines past, but not hugely up my alley. Making more melee sense are the war hammer and combat claw pieces. The hammer's totally a mechanical Mjolnir, while the claw's downright mean in how well spaced its spikes are for going straight into someone's eyes. Vindictive optic gore makes me smile. Finally, there's the multi-range scanner. The plan for the actual release is to have a sticker applied to the flat surface, and I really hope that comes to pass, because without something there, this is sort of an indeterminate handheld block. Once it's got a little screen, I feel like it'll make a lot more sense. Since they both use uniform connection points and have surplus pegs and ports all over their bodies, I tried figuring out a contained build for the Ursenal and Mantax duo. Subjugating his larger rival's components, the diminutive peroid fuses with the paralyzed augmenttoid to form Mega Mantax. Basically, I was smacking Ursenal's parts together and realized they were just starting to look like Mantax, so I tried merging the two into a larger body for the otherwise teeny bad guy. His tail is both an axe and a hammer. In my imagination, Mantax's core consciousness remains in his eyepiece, which now mounts atop this deranged flying/swimming, missile-launching machine gun body. One can also figure out combined weapon builds, but I find the challenge of working out unintended new robot forms to be way more intriguing. There are only 2 figures to mess with right now, but even then, there are cool potentials, like this double Ursenal robot that the BMOG team posted up on their website. This also highlights the big draw that BMOG holds for me. The weapons are cool, but thanks to Glyos and its compatible sibling series, I am still really hot on independent and buildable toylines. And what makes this work is the intentional placement of autonomy in the sculpts of the base weapon components. While this is technically a vaguely manta-like abomination made out of a bunch of guns and melee weapons, small touches like the optics, claws, and implied mobility technology add an extra little something. The fact that the BMOGs are designed to sort of look like animals on their own lends another layer to straight up building with them, and I hope I get to see this potential realized to a much denser degree should the line move into full production. BMOG hits a lot of cool notes, taking ideas reminiscent of mech-tech weaponry, Mugenbein, Arms Microns, and Action Master partners, and adding a much-needed binding agent of building and customizing play patterns. If these were simply weapons that had one means of combining into one animal mode, I'd be a lot less into them. The build element gives BMOG its own contained play pattern, something to let it stand on its own if you're a toy collector who somehow has managed to not own anything compatible with 5mm pegs and ports. My interest is piqued by the way the line is trying to fuse its elements together, with decent to great weapons that turn into a retro cute little mechanical animal, surface detailing supporting both quote-unquote modes, and the adaptation of the weapon accessory play pattern to support a basic build system. Also, speaking as a Glyos fan, it's kinda cool to see something akin to it, but using a different universal connector. If a Glyos to 5mm adapter piece ever gets made, I would love to start mixing BMOG parts with Toyfinity's Roboforce and the Weaponeers of Monka. Which is not to say I'm not having a lot of fun arming up my toys with some fresh guns and blades. These guys are awesome alongside a couple of Constructabots, or any other transforming Robotman toy that's got a lot of compatible ports, be they official or unofficial. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope this video's given you enough of a look into the biomechanical Ordinance Gestalts to consider whether or not you want to back the line's development. The Kickstarter campaign is running until December 13th, aiming for a goal of $19,000. They've got a full breakdown of what the money would pay for on their campaign page, along with a listing of pledge reward levels and other pertinent information. I leave the decision of backing up to you, but I do want to echo a sentiment that BattleGrip.com's Phil Reed expressed in my New York Comic Con 2013 interview piece with him. Well-thought-out crowdsourced campaigns for legitimately interesting independent toy lines are still a very rare thing in terms of actual successes. It's a concept with a lot of potential, and more worthwhile projects need to come to fruition to show the viability of the approach for toys. I really hope BMOG can stand with projects like OMFG or the Gothatropolis Ravens, in proving that the crowdsourced path is a legitimate one for the independent toy maker, and perhaps with a bit less stigma than the cloud that started to form over video game crowdsourcing. New Booger Man, guys!